2021, amidst all the chaos of the world, is still a landmark year for Tsuburaya Productions. It's the 55th anniversary for the Ultra series, Hideaki Anno and Shinji Higuchi's Shin Ultraman is on the horizon, and it's the 25th anniversary for one of the great saviors of the Land of Light. ULTRAMAN TIGA first appeared on Japanese airwaves in 1996, being the shot-in-the-arm Tsuburaya needed to bring the franchise into the Heisei era. Its popularity resulted in the fan-favorite TDG trilogy, consisting of Tiga, its sequel, Ultraman Dyna, released in 1997, and Ultraman Gaia in 1998. And Tiga has since become one of the secondary flagship characters for the Ultraman franchise, representing the second generation line, acting as a sort of Kamen Rider 2 to Ultraman's Kamen Rider 1. So when news dropped after the conclusion of Ultraman Z that the next Chronicle series, Ultraman Chronicles Z Heroes Odyssey, was going to feature Z, Tiga, Dyna, and Gaia in edited down episodes, fans were ecstatic. Fast forward to the show's premiere, which was simulcast on YouTube an hour after its Japanese broadcast, and people noticed something was clearly missing. Namely, Tiga's alter ego, Daigo Madoka, played by Hiroshi Nagano, was nowhere to be seen. There is a lot to unpack with this one, because Daigo's absence is indicative of a lingering curse that Ultraman Tiga has had to deal with since 1996. A curse placed by the greatest nemesis the Ultra series has ever known. No, not that one, although it's just as annoying. For Vintage Henshin Extra, I'm Mike Dent, and this is the story of the disappearance of Ultraman Tiga. The year was 1996, 30 years since Ultraman first graced Japanese airwaves. But for what should have been a happy occasion, Tsuburaya Productions was in a bit of turbulence. The company was still reeling from the death of former President Noboru Tsuburaya the year before. Ambitious to the point of controversy, Noboru nonetheless managed to steer the company during what was essentially Ultraman's wilderness years. His son, Kazuo Tsuburaya, was then thrust into the presidential hot seat, a contentious transition as, unlike those who came before, he lacked any sort of experience. This would spur several investors to move away from the company, effectively killing would-be Project Ultraman Neos, the intended grand return of Ultraman to Japanese television that Japanese television networks really didn't want. Though Tsuburaya did manage the release of the triple feature Ultraman Wonderful World in March of 1996, what would eventually become Tiga wouldn't see broadcast until that fall. Even then, the whole project was something of a miracle. In the background, well-known key to fun times, Bandai, had something of a crazy idea, raising their annual profits from 200 billion yen to 500 billion by 1998. And what better way to do it than by backing a recognizable brand that could go beyond toys and into all sorts of quality of life goods, which is something that Ultraman had been doing since the 1970s. Throughout the aforementioned wilderness years, Ultraman could be seen pushing everything from instant ramen to VCRs. When approached by Kazuo Tsuburaya, who was seeking sponsors for a new Ultraman TV series, Bandai came to realize the power of the Ultra brand and signed on, becoming a massive feather in this new show's cap. But still, Kazuo knew he would need just one more thing to lock in success: a star. Tsuburaya Productions would strike a deal with Japanese entertainment giant Johnny & Associates to get the up-and-coming Hiroshi Nagano to play series lead Daigo Madoka, the new Ultraman's alter ego. Another Johnny's actor, Yoichi Furuya, would also appear in the series as Jun Yazumi, the new support team's genius computer expert. Combined with the bombastic theme song Take Me Higher sung by V6, the boy band that Hiroshi Nagano was a member of, the show finally got its star power. This was incorporated into an aggressive promotional campaign leading into the premiere of the show, now titled Ultraman Tiga. Tiga coming from the Malaysian word for 3, referencing the hero's type-changing gimmick. Episode 1 premiered on September 7th, 1996 to much fanfare. It didn't do that great. Well, at least according to Kazuo Tsuburaya, who had considered Tiga a failure because of its meager ratings. The highest episode of the series averaged 9.9%, the lowest 4.4%. That aside, the show was critically acclaimed, striking a chord with young adults even with its more mature storylines. And Bandai was even satisfied thanks to the merch sales hitting close to their planned 20 billion yen profit target. It was enough to warrant production of Ultraman Dyna the following year. For now though, Tsuburaya Productions had succeeded in making Ultraman relatable again, and things could only get better from here. Unless you count Sompo Sans jump-starting the Chaya legal battle by showing up at the 1976 agreement the same year, and the revolving door of the Tsuburaya Productions CEO chair, and the Cosmos scandal in 2000. Okay, look, there's a lot of stories that are just waiting in the wings. I swear we'll talk about them at a later date. We gotta get to the meat and potatoes of this episode, the ultimate catch behind Tiga's success. In the glitzy world of Japanese entertainment, things work a bit differently than, say, Hollywood. Instead of agents who work for actors to get them roles or projects, there are gym shows or offices where artists are hired for salaried work. A gym show can literally make or break you, managing your schedule and even orchestrating master plans to build up your career, sometimes even involving plastic surgery. What's more, gym show salaries can start as low as 200,000 yen, roughly 1,900 USD, with negotiable raises on a year-to-year basis. And more than likely, whatever increases you do get, it still won't outdo the revenue you're bringing into the company. This often leaves newer talent in a tight situation. Tori Matizaka, who played Shinken Red in Samurai Sentai Shinkenger, famously admitted to surviving solely on water during production of the series because of his low wages as a new actor, let alone one on a hero show. Cherry on top of all this is the added caveat that in exchange for the salary, talent have to sign off on giving 100% of their appearance fees, royalties, and then some to the company. Additionally, some gym shows may have specific rules of conduct for their talent. There are idol musician gym shows where talent have to live by not smoking, drinking, or having open relationships. Failure to abide by these rules can result in talent being forced to prematurely graduate or resign from their groups. Also, fun fact, some gravure idols are contractually obligated to never show their bare breasts or be fully naked in any unsanctioned media. I'm serious, there are actually stories of non-essential crew being ordered off-set because a certain gravure idol was in the midst of a nude scene. Bear in mind, I'm condensing a lot here. And that's not even including all the unwritten rules between agencies that can screw a person over 3 ways from Sunday. Check the video description below for links to an excellent multi-part essay on the Jimisho system by Neo-Japanisme, as well as a lot of the sources I'm citing for this episode. So, amongst the dozens of Jimishos, there are of course several giants. And chiefly among the cream of the crop, founded in the early 1960s, is Johnny and Associates. Founded by Johnny Kitagawa, Johnny & Associates, sometimes called Johnny's Gym Show or simply Johnny's, is a massive film, TV, and music gym show with a stable of attractive men who can all sing, dance, and act. At one point, Johnny's had several of the biggest boy bands in Japanese pop history all under one roof. Acts like KAT-TUN, News, Tokyo, the aforementioned V6, Arashi, and of course, SMOP. Tokusatsu fans may know SMOP thanks to Shingo Katori appearing in the cult classic Sentai parody Rolling Bomber Special, and Goro Inagaki starring in the one-shot Kamen Rider G. The reason I speak in the past tense is, well, as of editing this video, SMOP has long since disbanded, Arashi is currently on hiatus, and several other groups have seen departures and outright disbandments due to scandals and other reasons. However, in the Japanese entertainment world, Johnny's has another running reputation that makes them more infamous than famous. Numerous accusations of shady business practices and enacting restrictions that are borderline draconian. Over the years, there have been allegations of Johnny and Associates using their sway in the media to effectively bully anyone posting anything unflattering about their talent. In 2008, after a Kodansha gossip magazine unfavorably reported on a member of Arashi, Johnny's pulled a scorched earth maneuver, Kodansha was blackballed from having access to any Johnny's talent for future publications, and simultaneously lost the rights to putting out their best-selling Johnny's year-end calendars. There are also accusations of Johnny's pushing media outlets to not use any coverage of Mori Katsuyuki, the artist who left the band SMOP in 1996, as a means of trying to erase him from the group's history. The allegations extend to even affecting coverage of competing artists. This garnered a bit of attention in 2008 when it came out on a staff blog that K-pop group TVXQ, in spite of several #1 singles in the Japanese charts at the time, had been struggling to get an invitation to perform on the top variety show Music Station. Which wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for Music Station's apparent loyalty to Johnny's related talent. This changed in 2009, with TVXQ appearing on other Johnny's related shows like SMOP x SMOP. A happy moment that was motivated by TVXQ's record label SM Entertainment offering to push Johnny's artists in South Korea. Johnny's was even investigated by the Fair Trade Commission in 2019 due to supposedly pulling strings to reduce coverage of a new group featuring former SMOP members. In spite of no hard evidence, they were still given a warning. One of the biggest points of Johnny's infamy is their stranglehold on any information and media pertaining to their artists. Not a single photograph nor frame of video goes out without their approval. This is why Kamen Rider G is something of a rarity, having never seen an official release in any capacity. Most shows and films involving Johnny's talent often have clauses in their contracts where using their likeness for promotion is forbidden. On top of that restriction, however, Johnny's famously had a long-running photo ban focused specifically on online media. According to an unnamed cameraman in an interview, Johnny's would even disallow images being sent to them for their own approval process by email, with some outlets even resorting to delivery via bike courier just to get it done. The ban was finally lifted in 2018, also seeing the opening of an official YouTube channel, probably after they realized they'd been shooting themselves in the foot non-stop fighting progress. And that's still not even the tip of the iceberg of the various scandals and allegations towards Johnny and Associates. This is the company that Tsuburaya had to do business with. Back to 1996. When negotiating to have Hiroshi Nagano star in Ultraman Tiga, the original concept for the character of Daigo was tied to his persona. He was going to be a mood maker who could dance and sing for his teammates. This was scrapped straight away by Johnny's, who then put in the contract that Nagano wouldn't under any circumstances dance or sing whatsoever. He's still one of the main vocals for Take Me Higher in the opening credits, but anything more than that was verboten. So then, remember that aggressive ad campaign for Tiga? Well, in the original TV promos, the only glimpse we got of Nagano as Daigo was at the very end for a fleeting few seconds. Tsuburaya couldn't escape the promotional clause. While Nagano did appear on Tiga print ads, in magazine interviews, and the occasional toy package, he still holds the record for being the only Heisei Ultra lead to never appear in a real-time commercial. The closest thing wouldn't happen until nearly a decade later for Bandai's Tiga Ultra Act figure. There have been other Johnny's-related complications in the years since. Best example, the use of Take Me Higher. There are a few Ultraman-related compilation albums where the V6 version is swapped out for a cover sung by Tatsuya Maeda. And in some territories, the song was completely swapped out for broadcasts. But largely among the post-series complications is the one that most Ultraman fans are deeply wary of: Tiga's internet streaming rights. As of 2021, nearly every Ultra series and their related films are available to watch across several Japanese streaming platforms. However, there is a very noticeable void once you reach the TDG trilogy. After Ultraman Tiga, Hiroshi Nagano would reprise the role of Daigo in the final 2 episodes of Ultraman Dyna, and in the films Tiga the Final Odyssey and Decisive Battle the Super 8 Ultra Brothers, all of which are not available to view anywhere. This is mostly speculation, but more than likely, while Nagano's contract covered the rights for reruns, home video, and international broadcasts, I'm pretty sure it had no mention of digital streaming rights. Because who was thinking about that in 1996? It's unclear whether it's on Tsuburaya's end or another instance of Johnny's putting their foot down, especially taking into account Johnny's long-held resentment of the internet. Why is Ultraman Dyna affected? Well, again, Daigo appears in the final 2 episodes. And what would be the point of streaming an incomplete series? This would come up in 2020 when Dyna ran for a limited time on Tsuburaya's YouTube channel. Instead of showing the 2-part finale, the series abruptly stopped without any explanation whatsoever. The only things pertaining to Dyna that are even available to stream on Amazon Prime are Ultraman Tiga and Dyna Warriors of the Star of Light, because Nagano wasn't in the movie due to scheduling conflicts, and Ultraman Gaia Battle in Hyperspace, also because Nagano's not in it. It has long since been a point of frustration for Ultra Series fans, especially after the announcement of the TDG project at Tokyo Comic Con 2018, the goal of which was to revitalize interest in the trilogy. And before you ask, everyone but Nagano was at the event.
T は今日どうした T は
T はちょっとね
T はだから高野です高野
And one of the most influential figures in Japan's entertainment industry, Johnny Kitagawa, has died at the age of 87. For more than half a century, his agency created numerous boy bands which became popular not just in Japan, but across Asia.
Johnny Kitagawa passed away in 2019. And by that point, Johnny and associates had been dealing with their own internal power struggles and scandals, resulting in them losing a lot of their luster and power. In light of this, and especially in the wake of the photo ban lift, there were hopes that things could potentially change regarding the rights for Tiga. That maybe, hey, with a change in the regime, things could finally be available. This takes us back to now, where those hopes were dashed the moment Episode 1 of Heroes Odyssey premiered. Bolstered by narration from Ultraman Zero, the episode starts with an epic montage of every Ultra Series protagonist across every universe, until we get to Daigo, who is represented by a fleeting static image of the spark lens. And then it got worse. In the edited down version of Tiga's first episode, Daigo effectively became Sir not appearing in this film. He is mentioned by name, we see his guts wing crash, we even hear the full prophecy of the time capsule that names him specifically, but nothing else is shown or heard. Conversely, the character of Yazumi had been completely removed from the show altogether, because even though he's no longer affiliated with them, Yoichi Furuya was with Johnny's Jr., the trainee branch of Johnny's and Associates, at the time of the production. And of course, all instances of Take Me Higher were removed from the incidental score. The only benefit of this, we got a lot more of the ending theme, Brave Love Tiga. As far as I'm concerned, that's the best possible consequence. The whole thing was oddly reminiscent of the dreaded Young Musashi cut of Ultraman Cosmos 2: The Blue Planet. This is where, due to a scandal with series lead Taiyo Sugiura, Tsuburaya quickly filmed new scenes that wove into a convoluted time travel plot that completely removed him from the film. After the first episode of Heroes Odyssey, fans were left scratching their heads and wondering what happened. Why would Tsuburaya make the effort to celebrate the anniversary of a beloved show with what is, in all honesty, a worthless compilation? From here on out, once more, this is my personal tinfoil hat speculation. So, there are 2 possible explanations for this. 1, Johnny's ordered them to make the cuts. You gotta take into account that Tsuburaya simulcasts their mainline shows for a limited time during their broadcast runs. So there is a chance that the whole thing flared up the streaming rights issue. Or it could have just been a flat-out order that I wouldn't be surprised if it turned out to be an 11th hour change. I can't help but lean towards this logic given how haphazard the show feels in some spots in terms of structure. The other, also likely, alternative is that the exclusions and edits were a preemptive strike by Tsuburaya in order to prevent any and all hassle. After everything I've mentioned about Johnny's and Associates up until now, can you really blame them if this is the case? Ultraman as a brand is a lot better than it was years ago. But to incur any sort of Johnny-pressured media backlash, specifically during an important anniversary year, that could be deadly. Especially with Shin Ultraman's release coming up so soon. Regardless of which conclusion is true, the question still lingers of why Tsuburaya would still bet on a flawed program. Firstly, because business. There is a myriad of new TDG toys on shelves in 2021 because of the 25th anniversary. An anniversary year cannot be ignored when there's money on the table. Just look at the premium Bandai 25th anniversary Spark Lens that was announced recently. As of editing this episode, Pre-Ban had to run multiple pre-order windows because the thing kept selling out within minutes. The same thing happened with the new SH Figuarts Tiga, which was bolstered by a nostalgia-fueled commercial featuring, well, Hiroshi Nagano.
Hisashiburi.
Because, of course, Bandai would make that happen. Secondly, Tsuburaya really needs to hold on to that coveted time slot. They've held onto it pretty strong since the inception of the new generation, and if the recently trademarked Ultraman Trigger is indeed supposed to be coming out this summer, they need something that's attention-grabbing and can also hold out for 6 or so months. So a show tied to an anniversary year, regardless of edits, will definitely do the trick. Long and short of it, I'm betting Tsuburaya had obligations to fulfill on this one. Because restrictions or no, they have to make a lot of companies happy in order to keep things afloat. I just wish that courtesy didn't have to extend to Johnny's, if that is indeed the case. Overall, Heroes Odyssey is just an unfortunate mess, and a sad reminder of the issues surrounding Ultraman Tiga. I think the only good things that'll come out of Heroes Odyssey are the new bits of re-release merchandise, and people seeking out the unedited version of Tiga on their own. And that's a good thing because Ultraman Tiga is a really good show. Nevertheless, if Tsuburaya is going to remain dangerously optimistic, I guess I can do the same. Here's to you, Tiga. Fingers ever so crossed.